The thought for today is, what's your vernacular? I was thinking more recently about language, how we use language, and as a communication and advertising professor, I think quite often about what do we represent by the language we use. Sometimes our language may be adversarial, sometimes it may be collaborative, right? And some of that's based on not only the words we use, but the tone with which we use it. Of course, I'm like many, many others. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube, uh, try to understand and stay current on what are the trends in society, what are the discussions underway, and again, how do influential people represent themselves? And for me, that often comes back to thinking about the vernacular. And in a definitional way, vernacular would be the types of words and language you use within a certain culture. Now, many times people that discuss the vernacular would associate that with a lower social class. For instance, the vernacular may be the street terms being used. Okay. It might not be the appropriate formal language of that culture or society. But I'd suggest more than that, that the vernacular being used has become the culture. Okay, what are influencers? Well, they influence, right? So in that, I was thinking through just a couple examples of that. We've had it for years now, right? OMG. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. How often is that used and interjected? Maybe thoughtfully, but I would suggest many times without thought, almost without, coming from the subconscious. Oh my God. And in that, what is the representation to you? Does that stop you and make you consider or think more about the person's presentation of their message or idea? Or for me, and again, I have a much sort of a biblical background. I'm sort of a hobbyist as a theologian and culture study person within religion. When someone says, "Oh my God," I like to stop for just a second and pause and think and meditate and say, "Oh my God. Oh my God." So for me, that's a moment of meditation. And I guess you'd call it micro prayer. Okay. The other parts of vernacular is what might have been considered in the past vulgar talk. It's words we use that represent a sexual nature, and also, of course, other vernacular related back to biblical thought, like, oh, Jesus Christ. Or you may have heard the term goddamn. Okay. Now, vernacular in many senses, I think that type of usage almost becomes just a pause in the conversation, or it's an elaboration or enunciation of an idea. For example, someone might hear something and in response go, Jesus Christ. Okay. Do you see again the tone and inflection of that vernacular demonstrates or exhibits a certain response? Okay. But to others, you might think, well, that's, a religious implication, and maybe not what you would choose or I personally would choose to use within my vocabulary. Again, this is not the judge. I think we all have to decide, how do we want to be perceived, and how do we want to influence or even communicate with others? What messages do we want to convey? And who do we want to be perceived as individuals within our society? Right? We're all social cultural beings. Most of us are engaged at some level through technology, social media, instant messaging, video sharing, etc. But in that, the language we use still comes back as a really firm primary representative sample of who we are, what our character is, etc. So in that, I'd suggest today, what's your vernacular? Why do you use it? Have you invested time in thinking about the vernacular that you do use? And again, as I think as a teacher, as an instructor, and as one who teaches communication courses, reading comprehension, writing, and then as I often teach, as you write, so shall you speak. How is it you want to speak and purvey yourself to others? And in that, how does our language affect how we become the best social leaders in society?